You see, when I was young, I gave God my hand and said, please lead the way. But the road got rough, and the going got so very tough. I decided I ain't going nowhere. I'm here to stay. I've been talked about, criticized. I even had to wipe the tears from my eyes. But oh, I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on to his Yes, I
The video you are about to view chronicles minority contractor Les Hamilton's personal experience with institutionalized racism in the construction industry.
You know, Les, in the mid-1960s, then President Lyndon Johnson came up with an idea that he hoped would help revitalize the inner cities and the poor and impoverished areas of America. He came up with a plan that they called the War on Poverty. In essence, the War on Poverty was a plan that would allow federal dollars to come into inner city and rural areas to help build it up. There was a gentleman here in Dayton at the time who is now deceased, C.J. McGlynn Jr. What was unique about Representative McGlynn is that he used politics to impact community development. C.J. McGlynn knew how to access the power that provided much of the things that happen in our community. It was organizations such as the Charles R. Drew Health Center built, Community Service Center, which is now the Daymont West building, was built, and various other things. And a lot of that happened because of the direct action of people like Representative McGlynn. There was very little that went on in West Dayton as far as building is concerned that African American builders and contractors were not alerted of and at least given an opportunity to participate in. I think most of us can agree that is no longer the case today. There's a project that's going on that you will talk about a little bit, Les. It's called Hope 6. Hope 6 is a major construction building project that's going underway now. And you might want to tell us a little bit and give us a little history about Hope 6 and what it means and should mean, I might say, to African American contractors and builders in this community.
Hope 6 is a HUD project which came online back in '93, and its main focus was to provide hope for residents in low-income housing. I got involved with it because I knew that that project was going to be in the inner city, and if you log on to the internet and you read a little bit about the Hope 6 project, it's pretty much designed to give community people part of the project from the cradle to the grave. In other words, the development of it, the management of it, and the construction dollars are geared towards the community as much as possible. Reading this, at the time I was the project manager for the Inner West Community Development Corporation. After doing a little research, I realized that there was not a minority contractor in the community that was really geared up to do basements, excavating area or doing the basement slab or the vertical walls. So we decided that we were going to go after Hope 6 and City Forest and develop a team to do the basements in an effort to share the wealth of these two major projects in our community as best as possible.
Did you have a lot of problems? You were able to pull together young men who had heretofore not had a lot of work experience and who had not necessarily worked in the construction industry. How did that work?
The first challenge that we had was to gather our resources, find a place to train, find the people to do the training, and bring the people on board.
We take the community, we mold experts from the community and make this happen, as opposed to a general contractor going out, hiring a company and contracting it out to a company. They bring in their crews and we sit around and ride past and wonder, you know, why they working in our hood, you know? We need real men, and I mean that. If you a boy mentally, Payless is hiring right now. There's going to be training, you ain't getting paid for it. You don't like it? Later. Those of you brothers who have experience, like Les said, we're going to depend on you guys to, you know, carry them along. That's what it's all about. It's residential prevailing, okay? High prevailing. The wages are good. From this project, from this phase, where we're talking masonry, like you said, we're framing and we're finishing these houses. We can do as much as we can handle. We want to do it all. And I know all of us want to do it all. And it's up to us. If we get out there and start complaining about how cold it is and our hands feel like they're falling off, we're going to fall off and we're going to lose.
This facility here is the Fellowship Hall for New Zion Missionary Baptist Church. I asked the pastor if we could use the facility, and his only question was, do you have a key? As you'll see in some of the footage, the facility is absolutely perfect for what we had to do for the training. Once we decided where we're going to train, who was going to be a part of the training? Well,
I was in the carpenters union, and I was in that carpenters union for 3 years, and I needed 1 more year to be a journeyman, but I don't know, the money got good, and I got kind of hot-headed. And, you know, in a position like that, like Raymond is saying, the best thing to do is just don't get too hot-headed once you start making the money. Stay focused.
Just putting the word out, word of mouth. The day we started training, we had over 50 applicants here, and this is back in January of last year, 50 applicants here to take part of the training. Training was divided into 4 different groups. First, the introduction and, of course, the paperwork. I found that the applicants, one of the trends that we found was a lot of them had priors.
Yes, my name is Antoine James, and I'm here to learn about construction and creativity. I'm on, you know what I'm saying, what they call papers, probation. You know, this is a good opportunity for those who that's on papers, got a parole officer. It's for those, you know what I'm saying, they can understand the morals and how to abide by the parole life, probation life. And if you're a con, you know what I'm saying, look at it, you know what I'm saying, you can realize and analyze that you can do it.
And I've also been to prison. And I've seen a lot of young men in there that wouldn't be there if they had somebody to show them something. I have a good job, I make good money, I probably won't make that here, but I'm willing to give that up if I can help somebody.
But they levitated toward the construction because it was something that they could do and something that they felt comfortable with, and this project was in their community. I didn't have any problem with prior records as long as they paid their debt to society. We said, come on board, let's train so that we can go to work. Another interesting fact was there were a lot of them with BMV, Bureau of Motor Vehicle violations, to the point where they didn't have driver's license. And what I call the 3 strike and you're out for these segments of our society being employable was a lot of them had prior or existing child support issues. That in turn makes them very hard to employ. So when you have a project in the community, and these guys want to work, they've run the gamut, they've been in and out of various problems, and now what they want to do is go to work. So when you find that there are a lot of folks in the community that have these issues, when the door opens for work in the community, you'll find that they will really come running. And that was the case for us. They did come running. We started the first week out by simply training on what we call the Simon forms. That's a form system that you use to erect vertical walls in the construction industry. And we trained the guys for 1 week just on the bookwork of the forms. And we had a test at the end of the week. And I might add that every day we averaged between 30 and 35 people throughout the training process. And again, this was back in January. Average temperature back then was about 6 to 10 degrees, so it was pretty cold.
I feel it's an honor to be a part of a program like this, where we go back and build new homes, new foundations. We work with concrete. I have prior experience, but coming here, the teachers have taught me a lot about unity and being part of a working team. We're outside right now working 8-degree weather, and the noise you hear in the background is the men still working, and they're still in training at 9 o'clock at night. We want to do this. We've been appointed to do this, and we're going to get it done.
A lot of the work as we went through the training was outside. After we finished the test part of it, we had demonstrations, and the gentlemen were, and ladies, there were some ladies there involved as well.
My name is Rosetta Johnson. I'm part of this all-black construction crew. I take my hat off once you can see that I am a woman on this crew. There is 2 of us, and I'm one of the 2. So women can do this too. I'm very proud of what I'm doing. I'm very proud of this thing that we got going here with our black crew. We're going to do this, y'all.
Along with the New Zion Missionary Baptist Church, the community support was overwhelming.
Less has caused varying brothers who may not would have had that opportunity to see a vision, to see a method to get back into a lifestyle that's conducive to the upbuilding of a godly community.
The Dayton Urban League provided applicants.
Hello, my name is Willie Walker. I'm president of the Dayton Urban League. The Urban League is very happy to be involved in the work project that is going on with Hope 6. We work through our Career Opportunities Program, better known as COPS, and it's providing an opportunity for young men and women that have an interest in getting involved in the construction trades to learn a little bit more about those trades, but also at the same time to get education through Sinclair Community College. It is through those efforts that they learn more about what is required of them, but also they get an opportunity to network with those that have had experiences in those areas in hopes to learn more, in hopes that they may learn more about the job in the construction industry.
And last, but certainly not least, the House of Bread provided the workers with a hot meal daily in one of the worst winters on record.
The House of Bread, as you know, is a community kitchen that was established in 1983 by Sister Dorothy Kammer and a handful of her friends who decided that they needed to address the issue of hunger on the streets of Dayton. And as a result, years later, this August, we were fortunate enough to move into this new facility here at 9 North Avenue in the Edwin C. Moses Riverview area.
Okay. Now we got to put them in your car. Okay?
The next phase of it was simply hands-on training. It was very competitive.
Y'all ready? Good chief. Y'all ready? Well, if you ain't, it's too late. Go, go!
a little luck, we'll be back in business tomorrow afternoon as soon as the part comes in. But unfortunately, it may rain tomorrow. With the contract price too low, it is easy to manipulate the results of the project. The next part of the project that happened was there was little to no supervision that was guiding the contractors at the time. In other words, things happen that should have been caught in the process. Don't wait till 5 or 6 or 8 basements are constructed and then go back and say, well, let's go back and look at that first and second basement because we don't think that something was done right. There was little to no project supervision on the job, knowing what we were doing. We were doing what Hope 6 said do. We were taking Section 3 people. These are folks that meet a certain monetary income, that were displaced by Hope 6, used to live in public housing.
Really an honor for me to be a part of the apprentice program, the concrete company, the pride, the unity that's being displayed here is unprecedented. I don't know what's going on in any other city, but Dayton is represented.
Everyone on our team was a qualified Section 3 person. According to the specifications, that was to afford us an opportunity to get in and work and learn and build capacity. Specifically, Hope 6, City Forest, and ultimately the Dayton Public Schools. The theme behind this is community folks rallying behind the community people to work on the community projects. It's an opportunity that we have, opportunities that I have seen none the like in my career, in my lifetime in the city of Dayton. And that's the way it read. That's one of the reasons why we were so excited about the project. Special considerations for Section 3 applicants and contractors in the community. Surely we would get a fair break. Allegations of substandard work began to circulate throughout the job. Now, for a minority contractor, this can be devastating because it's one of those things where, for example, a young man is picked up by the police. They say, well, it's drug related. Everybody just turns their back. Well, he's into drugs. And there's no sympathy or there's no hope or there's no support for that young man. Well, he was into drugs. But you don't know that. It's something that was said. In the construction industry, substandard work. Well, there they go again. You know, it was alleged, but we don't know that.
All right. Yeah, get her tied back. You're good to go. Yes, sir. For Hamilton's job, we are going to pour at 12 o'clock. We're moving on, baby.
Tell me what is substandard. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Give me an opportunity to fix it. After those allegations, Dayton Metropolitan Housing shut the job down for 6 weeks. And for me as a subcontractor, that was devastating pretty much put us out of business.
When they poured the rebar.
All of Mr. Hamilton's basements today support new homes, and approximately 4 weeks before the shutdown, Mr. Hamilton received a letter from the general contractor commending his company on its high quality of work. Les, I want to thank you for the quality foundation that your company erected at 1202 Riverview. Whereas this is your second foundation, the wall is equal to the work being performed by Souder Concrete Construction, who has poured thousands of foundations. Oberer Residential Construction Limited has observed the pace of the work that resulted in a timely and efficient quality job. If you keep the same pace, you should do well on future jobs. Once again, thank you for a quality job and keep up the good work. Bartley L. Mullahan, Oberer Residential Construction Limited.
We did not have the forms, the assignment forms. They're very expensive. Only a few contractors that have been in the business for years own those forms. We rented our forms. Those forms cost us well over $3,000 a month to rent. In order to pay that back with a very, very minimum contract price, we had to construct a minimum of 4 basements a week just to make up for the payment on the forms. So we're sitting there with our forms for 6 weeks before we decided to, and I made the decision, well, we can't go forward. We must turn these forms back in or we'll not be able to pay for them. If you don't know and understand the construction process, it's very difficult to seek support to help your cause. And a good example was rearrangement of the schedule of values. Okay, this is a blown up detailed drawing of a double, the basement. And in this drawing you see where there's approximately 200 linear foot of vertical wall. And this also for the double. In our particular case, we agreed that the value for that wall was $10,000. The rearrangements of the schedule of value would be for the general contractor to change that value as we begin the construction process. We've got materials, we've got employees, and we are depending on every bit of the agreed amount to make payroll and pay our suppliers. If this value is changed in mid-flight, the results are very devastating to the subcontractor. And again, the schedule of values are indicated on the construction pay request, contract amount. In this case, we're doing 702, 704 Broadway. Our contract includes the excavation, the concrete walls, the footer, the garage footer, and the flat work. And these amounts represent the schedule of value. The total contract amount for this address is $21,875. Anytime you rearrange the schedule of value, take that from a $10,000 to an $8,000, and in this case, put the $2,000 down on the footer, brought that up to $4,000, and reduce the vertical walls. It's a tremendous hardship on the subcontractor, particularly if he is not informed and agreed that that would be an acceptable practice for him. The contractor chose to tell us this information on a Friday. Our payroll and paychecks are delivered on a Friday afternoon. We always try to be consistent with delivering the paychecks. Paychecks are always delivered on Friday afternoon to the job site. We didn't know that the schedule of value was reduced by more than $1,000, in this case $2,000, until Friday afternoon. So put it in a short and sweet point, it was very devastating to our cash flow. And it was done to us in a way that, I mean, who are you going to tell? Who are you going to complain to? It's the general contractor's prerogative to do this, and he did it, and he knows very well what the consequences, the ramifications of doing that to a small subcontractor is. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it came to pass, that it happened because he understands what effects that would have on us. What I'm going to do now is talk about net payroll. And net payroll, in my opinion, is one of the most devastating tactics. It is absolutely devastating, and I'll try to demonstrate why it is. Net payroll. Net payroll is a practice that the general contractor uses when he wants to reduce the amount of burden that he is obligated to pay the minority contractor on a scheduled pay process. An example. With this payroll report, we are asking for a total amount of $4,095.35. Our payroll processing people tell us for the week ending, this is what we need to meet not only our net payroll, but also all of our withholdings and payroll obligations with the various tax agencies. When the net payroll process is used, the general contractor then agrees to only pay us the net amount. In other words, the guy's checks will clear, but they leave the subcontractor with the obligation of paying their employee tax withholdings, their Social Security, Medicare, federal, Ohio state taxes, Dayton local employees tax expenses, and the Social Security amount, the Medicare, FICA, and all the other trust fund obligations that the subcontractor is due when the payroll are processed. Net payroll does not allow the subcontractor to pay this amount. The general contractor then puts the burden on the subcontractor, and if these amounts are not paid, of course, each and every one of these institutions, these agencies have very strong collection practices. Sometimes the subcontractor never receives this money when the net payroll process is used.
Would you say that, to just be candid, that it was almost set up to fail?
The conclusions would have to be yes. They know and understand what a low bid means. They know and understand what rearrangements of the schedule of value in mid-flight, what that means to us. I hate saying it, but yes, I would have to say that it was designed to fail.
You know, it kind of gets back to one of the original statements that was made in the earlier part of this conversation. In the 1970s and 80s, when there was quite a bit of building and advocacy going on in the African American community as it relates to construction and so forth, there were people to tell. There doesn't seem to be that type of advocacy in Dayton today.
And it's unfortunate, but it is not. And I've been in and out of the construction industry pretty much for the last 25 years. And I remember very well when Al Washington was...
he was with the Human Relations Council. Compliance, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it would be nothing for Al to take a bid and ball it up and throw it across the room if it did not have the correct minority participation. And he knew and understood the process.
When I returned to Dayton, I found the level of minority participation in the construction industry significantly different than the time I left. Ironically, the level of participation closely parallels, if in fact is not worse, than when we first started the effort in the early 70s. Through the Dayton Hometown Plan, with participation of the Dayton Minority Coalition and as the compliance officer for the city, we were able to effect an awful lot of change to create opportunities for minority employees and subsequently for minority contractors throughout the construction industry in the area. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to serve as compliance officer not only for the city, but also for the Housing Authority, for the school board, for the Regional Transit Authority, and for the county. And we were able to cause a number of things to be changed. As a result of that, of course, lawsuits were filed. We won lawsuits with the RTA when we built the bus barn. We achieved over 22% minority business participation when we built the Dayton Career Academy. Those are now separate and distinct different jobs that different people hold, but we're not achieving the same level of participation when just one person was doing that. Essentially, the laws that we were using are the same laws. The level of enforcement, however, is completely different. With the level of enforcement being completely different, obviously the outcomes are completely different. The real challenge at this point is to affect the level of community involvement and community pressure to cause those things to change. The school board needs to change, the city needs to change, the housing authority needs to change, the county needs to change, and that's simply not going to happen until residents and community folks say enough is enough, and fairness has to be the order of the day.
It's one thing to fight for the job and get minority contractors on the job, but as a minority contractor, I'll tell you that the battle begins once you sign on the dotted line. There are so many games that are played to pretty much be more engaged with knowing what tricks are being played rather than getting on with the process itself. If you don't have someone that is standing back with a strong hammer to counteract these games and keep the majority contractors on the straight and narrow, minorities will be run aground. They will be played on, and unfortunately, if you start the process with little resources, it just doesn't take much to buckle you to the point where you're just no longer a player.
You said also was that in being able to develop a business, it's a process of development. And hopefully you will get to a certain goal that helps you to be a marketable entity. And it did not happen because there were various stopgaps put in the way of the progress, which is generally the progress that allows a company to move from point A to point B.
And that is a real good point. Minority contractors are no different than majority contractors, except they lack opportunity. You give them the opportunity, they will be just as good as anyone else. And I'm sure of that because I've been in the business long enough to know. Our process was to work Hope 6, work City 4s, put ourselves in a structured position to go after the city schools. After we had worked both the process, the two contracts, and develop a little collateral, the game was to work the two processes with the housing projects and move right into the city schools, provided the opportunity was there. The opportunity was there, but unfortunately it just didn't work out for us because we were not allowed the opportunity to continue to work.
You say it didn't work out for us. When does it work out? What needs to be put in place to make sure that the next group of young men who have hope are not hoodwinked by this kind of behavior?
One of the things that I would look at, if you don't have someone that knows and understands the process, have the guts to stop a general contractor's payment if he is not doing the right thing. You have to know and understand when rearrangements of schedule of values is taking place and what that does. Or when the contractor, the minority contractor, is forced to take a number that he cannot live with if he wants to work the project. You have to know and understand the process of construction to keep the general contractor in place. For anything else, I will look at the organization that is letting the contracts. Are they serious? And I keep saying the Dayton Public Schools because it's such a large process. It's a large contract. It's the largest capital improvement project ever for the city of Dayton. You can take a small fledgling company like myself or a lot of other minorities that will come forward. You can make them or break them on the Dayton Public Schools alone. If they are fed to the wolves, the first contract, then they probably will be damaged and won't be in a position to come back. But if the owner takes the responsibility, and in this case it is the Dayton Public Schools, if the owner takes responsibility of saying, we're going to do this because it is that important and we're not accepting failure. We're going to make sure that each and every minority that comes on board is treated fairly. There are going to be no games played, And by the way, we know and understand the games very well. We're just not going to allow it. And if you do, general contractor, if you do play the games, then you will not be allowed to enter in that next bidding process. That type of language has to be there somewhere. Now the question is, who's going to say it?
Well, not only the language, but there has to be a big stick standing on the sideline ready to be used when the language is not enforced. And I think that's where the buck has stopped in Dayton, Ohio during this period. And we have to get back to that type of advocacy in order for fair and equitable treatment to take place.
And that's really interesting. Now, the question is, who should have the big stick? Should it be the owners, which is the Dayton Board of Education, in this case, again, looking at the school system, or should it be the residents who voted overwhelmingly to approve the project? If, for example, the residents of the community said, okay, let's get it on, build the schools, but we're going to look. And if this school is built without what we consider enough minority participation, we're going to stop it. Whatever it takes, we're going to stop it.
I think the key word, Les, is accountability. The residents voted to make the school board and the school officials accountable. The school officials hire a general contractor, which must be accountable to them. So it's a tier process that starts with people. And that's in any project that deals with government money. It's a people-driven situation. The people say this is what we want, and the people have to stand behind it. The people have to step up to the plate and demand that they're treated with fairness. Because when it all boils down to it, where does the money come from? My taxes, your taxes?
Absolutely.
The truth of the matter is that fine line that stands between the guy who is running the project or the school board and the people. All the people can't stand up and holler at one time. So they have to be made accountable through those people who we put in charge, or various officials, to make them understand that they have a responsibility to their community and to their constituents to make this community work for all its citizens.
And it is so important. Having and holding a job is the single most decisive factor that determines an individual's ability to survive. It is so important. Just looking at the City of Dayton website, and I scrolled down and I looked at some of the stats from the 2000 census. I looked at FROC, Inner West, Northwest, and Southwest. Well, I call that West Dayton. I looked at some of the statistics of West Dayton. There are over 21,000 young men and women who are not in the workforce based on the 2000 census. Not in the workforce. A lot of these young men and women were the young brothers and sisters that we saw that came to training. It's not because they're lazy or they don't want to work. They do want to work. They want to work a job in their community that is meaningful. So here's a community that has just about a fourth of its people not in the workforce. Unfortunately, these folks are going to get paid. And in my opinion, they constitute what we refer to as the underground economy. The underground economy are the people that are doing the types of things that are not what we consider gainfully employment, but they're getting paid. Unfortunately, a lot of their activities are considered illegal activities. And then that begins the snowball effect. Well, if they're doing something illegal, their net income is not measured by any gross national product. It's measured by City of Dayton criminal justice statistics. So we go from one area right into the other. They can't get a job, so the next thing you know, they're feeding into work provided by the underground economy. The underground economy then begins to feed on the criminal justice system. Once they get into that system, they've got that strike one, strike two, strike three. Now they're unemployable. It is so important that minority contractors are afforded the opportunity to work on projects in the community because they are more understanding of people with priors. I don't really care what you have done in the past, as long as you paid your debt to society. If you're willing to come to work, and if it's in the community, transportation is never that big of an issue. RTA travels there. So if you can't get a job because of a car somewhere outside the community, you can always get a job in the community. So these jobs that come along, this construction work that comes along in the community, absolutely has to be protected, has to be fought for. And I really can't understand why there is not enough people coming to the table fighting for these jobs.
You know, Les, as I listen to you explain the process, it makes me understand that we have a lot of work to do to make sure that Dayton, Ohio, as America itself, lives up to its creed of equal opportunity for all people. And I think there are a lot of things going on in this community, a lot of plans for the future. We've seen a lot of things happen in the past. We've seen baseball. We've seen major performing arts centers. We've seen all kinds of things that have happened in this community and seen very little minority participation over the last few years. Let's make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in the God-given resources that this community has to offer. I think we do that, we'll see a change.
Hello, my name is Robert Hamilton. I hope you enjoyed my video, and I also hope you found it informative. But most of all, after viewing this video, I hope you were angered. Not just my black brothers and sisters, but all people who subscribe to honesty and fair play. Now, since you viewed it, I would like for you to truly ask yourself, was it Hope 6 or was it Hopeless 6? And you make the call. Thank you, and may God bless us all.